seen, and it's usually known as a common weed.
Yes.
So this is plantain, not related to the banana-like plantain, whole other plant. This is its flower stalk. Doesn't look too much like a flower, but that's what it is. And plantain, if you want to pick a leaf, if you guys want to pick a leaf, and you kind of pull it apart, you're gonna notice there are these little strings in the middle of it. So it's very fibrous. And this is an older plant. So if you were to harvest little baby ones, so like the smaller ones here, they're gonna be less fibrous, and this is an edible, so you can saute it like spinach, or use it like any other green in cooking. I usually combine it with another green just because it adds more flavor. It's not super tasty, but you can definitely use it for cooking, or even for salads if you use the little ones. And plantain is one of my favorites just because it's everywhere. And it's always, if you're hiking, you'll be able to find it oftentimes. And it's very specific for bug bites. So if you get a bee sting or a mosquito bite and it's itchy or painful, if you ever you can put the leaf in your mouth and just chew it for a second, and then spit it out and put it on the bug bite.
Oh, I have to chew it.
Or just kind of like mush it up in your fingers.
Get the oil out.
And put it on, the bug bite or the bee sting, and either just rub it there or put a Band-Aid over, and it's gonna get rid of the sting, get rid of the pain. And last summer I was working in the garden and got a wasp or a yellow jacket sting on my leg, and in like 30 seconds I found plantain, put it on there, and immediately the sting was completely gone. I never had any couldn't see anything afterwards. So really great. And the way that it works is that it has really strong anti-inflammatory properties, so it reduces inflammation. You can make a salve with it for any skin, scrapes, any skin irritation, or take it as a tea internally for internal inflammation. It's really good for healing ulcers or gastritis, stomach upset, for soothing the gut. It's really great. Those are its main properties. You can use the flower as well. It's antimicrobial, antifungal. Great for all skin things. And if you guys want to feel the leaf, it's really fuzzy. Kind of feels like a lamb's ear. And it's often confused with a plant called
I used to think it was. I have it in my property, and I thought it was lamb's ear for the longest time.
Mullein. And mullein, this little part here is the flower stalk, and so it looks like it's past bloom, but it has these beautiful little yellow flowers that pop up. Not all at the same time, but usually like a few at a time, then they'll fade, and then other ones will pop up. And mullein is not an edible plant, but it's a medicinal plant, so you can use it for coughs and for the upper respiratory system. It's really soothing. It helps with expelling if you have like phlegm or like that congestion in your lungs. It's going to help to expel that. So if you're really coughing and it's not really getting anywhere, you can drink mullein tea or make a tincture, which is when you put the plant in an alcohol base and extract the properties in alcohol, and then take it in a little dropper bottle. So that's mullein. That's its main use. It can also be,
Oh, I was going to ask, is it related to burdock?
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think it is either.
No. But the other use, so that's for the leaves you would use for coughs, and then the flowers, yellow flowers, you can infuse in olive oil. And then if you have an ear infection, which a lot of kids get, you can put droppers of the infused oil in both ears and let it sit there, and instead of taking an antibiotic, that's going to help to remove the infection, and it works really well. So that's a good one to know about. So we'll talk about this plant here first. This is called St. John's wort, or St. Jones wort, some people call it. And its scientific botanical name is Hypericum perforatum. And this one has this beautiful yellow flower. And if you pinch a flower or a flower bud that's just beginning to bloom, kind of rub it between your fingers, it's gonna leave this bright purple, this is not a big enough one, but a purple stain. Let me try another here. On your fingers. And so you can kind of see it's like leaving a little bit of a purple. This one isn't. Might be a little bit past its prime, but you can take for yourself a little bud and just rub it between your fingers, and that's where the medicinal properties are in the plant. And so St. John's wort, so you can kind of see it's like turning purple. So St. John's wort, it has a relationship with the sun, and if you hold up a leaf towards the light, it has these little, if you want to take a little one and hold it up towards the light, it has these little perforations in the leaf and little holes, and kind of, you kind of see that a little bit? Yeah, little holes. And so it has a relationship with the sun. So St. John's wort you can infuse in oil, and if you infuse just the flowers in oil and use it topically, it can actually act kind of as a natural sunscreen and prevent sunburn. But if you infuse the whole plant, the leaves and the flowers in oil and put on your skin, it can create sun photosensitivity.
Oh,
so it has this really interesting relationship with the sun, so you have to be careful. Yeah, and the oil turns a bright red, deep red color. It's really beautiful, and so you can use that topically for joint pain, for like arthritis kind of thing, or really soothing for like after sunburn, or to prevent, prevent too much sun if you just use the flowers. And then internally, St. John's wort is really popular for anxiety and depression. That's kind of what it's known for, but it has a lot of other uses as well. But that's kind of what it's become, popularized for. So that's St. John's wort. And then, let's see, we can look at this plant right here with the purple flowers, and this is called self-heal, or prunella. Self-heal or all-heal, it's also called. And prunella, hence the name all-heal, it's good for a lot of different purposes. It's very specific for use for concussions, for after concussions, taken internally. And it's also, in Chinese medicine, it's used for lung issues. It's an edible. So, as these guys were just saying, if you take a little pinch of the fruit here, this red fruit, it's a little sour, and you can make like a non-lemon lemonade with sumac, a drink, just by brewing a tea with it, and then you can let it cool or drink it hot. And if you just rub it between your fingers and kind of taste your fingers, it's sour, right? You guys have heard that? Yeah. So that's a fun one to know about. You don't really use the leaves for anything.
They are kind of
Soft. Oh yeah, they are. Yeah. So very fuzzy and edible. And then here we have bay. So bay leaf, which you would often use in, soups. Yeah, bayberries. And this is the leaf. And this is one of my favorite smells, to kind of crumble it in your fingers and smell. It always reminds me of Heron Island. And yeah, so this one is often used if you were like to make pickles or different ferments to keep the vegetables crispy and not soft. So used in soups and stews, and you often take the leaf out when you're done, and you wouldn't necessarily eat it, but just used as flavoring. So maybe instead of buying bay leaves from the store, you can dry your own here, and put that in a little jar for the winter. That's a good one.
We use them all the time.
I know. We have a Greek myth that Achilles, before he would go into battle, his mother would hold him by his Achilles heel, upside down, and dip him in a vat of yarrow elixir of some sort. And his whole body was covered with the yarrow elixir except for his heel. So he would go into battle and he would get, his whole body was protected, but then he would get swords or whatever through his heel. So that's kind of that little story. And so yarrow is thought of as a very protective herb. It's also a great wound healer. So it's called a styptic, which means that it staunches bleeding. So yesterday we were on Monhegan. My dad got his leg in a rock, or banged on a rock, and was bleeding. And it wasn't really stopping, so he took a little yarrow and put it on there, put a band-aid over, and it stopped. So it can be great for nosebleeds. You can dry, yep, it worked. You can dry yarrow and then put it in like a Cuisinart or a blender and powder it. And then if you get a nosebleed, you can put it there, or any sort of
Just like stuff it up there?
Yeah, or any sort of, wound. It's antimicrobial, so you can put it right on a wound and it's not going to create infection, and it will help to stop the bleeding. Yarrow is also great for colds and flus. So it has a gentle action where if you have a fever, it's going to gently raise your temperature and then expel the fever. So it's going to cool you down in the long run, but it will kind of bring the fever up to a head and then disperse it. So great fever reducer, great for cold and flu symptoms. And it's also a great natural bug repellent. So you can make like a spray, a tincture, and then a spray with it for repellent. And you can use both the flowers and the feathery leaves here. That's yarrow. And then we have some dandelions here, which dandelion is one of my favorite plants. So this is kind of an old dandelion. There's some other ones all through there. And dandelion, the whole plant is edible and medicinal. So you can cook the leaves like you would spinach, really high in iron. You can use the flowers in salads or anything like that. One really great recipe in the springtime is you take the whole aerial, the upper part of the plant, so the leaves and the flowers, and you take chickpea flour with a little water and salt and pepper and make like a batter with it, and you dip the whole dandelion in it and then put it in some olive oil on a skillet. Make like a little patty. It's really good. And then the roots, if anyone is a coffee fan, if you roast the roots, like chop them up and roast them, it tastes like coffee. Make a tea with it, tastes like coffee. And really great for the liver, so it's often used in the springtime as a tonic. In Chinese medicine, every season is associated with a different organ, and the spring is associated with the liver. And dandelion root is really specific for liver detoxification and health, so it's often used, the first 6 weeks of the spring to kind of cleanse the liver for the summer. What else? Yeah, so great for the digestive system as well. It's bitter. The root is bitter, so it's going to stimulate the production of bile, which then helps digestion. That's dandelion. And then there's another one right over here. So this plant right here is yellow dock. And yellow dock, the root is primarily used, and it's a yellow root if you were to dig it up. And this one is great for the assimilation of iron. So it doesn't necessarily contain a lot of iron, but it helps the uptake for your own body being able to assimilate iron better. So you would make a tincture with it or a syrup with molasses and some other herbs, and that's a good iron elixir if you have low iron or you're vegetarian, vegan, you're not getting enough iron. That's what that's primarily used for.
Allie, does that flower?
Yeah. And this is edible, so you can definitely harvest the leaves for salads or to cook with, but it's also very medicinal. So this is a gentle sedative. So you can make a tincture or a tea with it, and it's going to help with sleep and to calm the nervous system down. And let's see, one way to easily identify it is if you harvest a leaf or part of the stem. If you guys see right here, all this milky substance that's coming out, and if you break open this, you can kind of see, well, you can pass this around, but this isn't a great one. But do you see the little white coming out there? Yeah. So that's where it's latex kind of. And you guys can see when you pass here the milky part coming from where I harvested this, and that's where the medicinal properties are. So if you make a tincture with it, you would put it in a blender with the alcohol and get it all, mixed up, and then let that sit for a month or so. So yeah, really great for sleep and also as a pain reliever. It's almost used similarly to how an opioid would be used to attach to pain receptors in that similar way, but a much gentler, natural.
People get addicted to this.
But
Gotta keep an eye on that plant.
Yeah.
And you smell it? It smells like
What other herbs
lettuce.
you can find out here?
Yeah, and actually, a regular romaine lettuce has very more mild but similar properties. So if you eat lettuce before bed, you might be a little bit more relaxed.
Can it be habit forming? Do you know?
No, it's not habit.
It isn't. But you said it does attach to the same receptors as an opioid.
It
so
works
I wonder.
similarly, but in a non-addictive way.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's what a lot of the natural.
Oh, that plant's gone.
Yeah.
Are there more?
Well, it makes me curious what the addictive
We better find
property
more.
is.
Yeah, I think it might
Yeah.
also just be
Yeah.
that is such a higher dose compared.
Right,
This is
right, maybe it's
such
just-
yeah. Use kind of how we would use black tea leaves for tea. It has high levels of tannins in the blackberry leaves. So it has a little bit of that black tea flavor if you were to make a tea with it. And because of those tannins, it has astringency properties, so tightening properties to tissues internally and externally. So it can be used to tighten tissues, to hold together if there's like kind of boggy tissue in the body, but mostly just as a like black tea replacement. Yeah.
I couldn't hear back here.
Oh, yeah.
Can you say?
So this is blackberry leaf.
Oh, blackberry. Okay.
And it's used oftentimes instead of black tea to make a tea just because it's high in tannin, so it tastes very similarly to black tea. So if you're looking to not have caffeine, but you still like black tea, it could be a good replacement for that. And it's astringent, so it holds tissues together. Similarly to blackberry, it's astringent, so it holds tissues together. And it's really well known for women who are in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy before they give birth to drink red raspberry leaf tea, and it helps to, once they do go into labor, to ease the labor and just speed it up a little bit too. And red raspberry leaf, it's also really high in minerals, so it's gonna replenish the mineral level in your body, so you can do a tea with it, and it almost tastes slightly like salty and mineral rich, very subtly, but you will notice that. So very high in minerals. Yeah, and this is called ghost pipe, and it's pretty rare. You're not gonna see it all over the place, and it's not a mushroom, it's a flower. It's a perennial, but it does have a relationship with the mycelial networks, and it pulls up nutrients from those rhizomes that are under the ground and kind of like intercepts those connections and draws up the nutrients into the upper layers of the soil and into the plant. But it's very specific for people who are in so much pain, either physically or emotionally, that they can't like be in their body and they need to separate from it. So you can take it usually as a tincture. The upper, the aerial part of the plant, you can also sometimes use the root, but usually people use the upper part so that it grows back. So it's used to like separate the person's pain almost from their body so that they can still live in their body without experiencing that much pain. So it's only used for, often for people with PTSD, really big traumatic events that take place. So it's very specific and not used, commonly. But it acts on the nervous system to calm the body, often used for sleep issues, when someone is in so much pain that they can't sleep. So it's one, I've never used it for people, but it's a pretty powerful one, and you can kind of see the little flower in there.
It would be the flower that would be used.
You would use the whole upper part. Some herbalists say to use the root as well. And it's not, for most people, it's not what you want, because we want to be grounded in our bodies and not like, spacey. So it's really only for specific instances where the person can't, it's too painful to be in their body. So edible, so if you see, do you see any pods? Oh yeah, over here. Yes, if you pick that.
This is
There's
kind
one
of
right
gone by, but
Yeah, well no, because, so this is beach pea, and the outside pods, they're pretty tough, so you don't usually eat those, but if you open it up, you'll see bright peas in there, which you can either eat raw or cooked, and that's perfect, yeah. Talking about beach peas, which the pod you don't really want to eat, but the internal pea you can definitely eat fresh or raw, cooked or raw, and very similar to other peas you would buy at the store, but you can find them on Heron Island. Lots of goldenrod in here, which is the yellow flower with the green leaves. And goldenrod, it's funny because a lot of people think that they're allergic to goldenrod, but it's actually often, some people might be allergic to goldenrod, so I won't say everyone, but it's usually something else, and I can't remember what it is exactly right now, but that's blooming at the same time as goldenrod, but it's not
Like ragweed?
Ragweed, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, ragweed. So it's actually not goldenrod, and goldenrod can be used for anti-allergy support. So it's gonna lower your histamine levels in your body. So you can take it as a tea form. The flowers, the yellow flowers, not the green, you wouldn't use. But for allergy support. support, for upper respiratory issues. And you can also, similarly to the St. John's wort that we talked about before, you can infuse it in olive oil or any kind of oil, let it sit for a month or so, and then use it topically for pain relief. So really specific for pain relief. The St. John's wort is more specific for joint and nerve pain, and then this is more specific for muscle and like other skin pain.
So how would you do it as a histamine though?
Yeah, so
Not
you
rub
take
it.
it as a tea.
Tea.
Yep, tea or tincture you could do.
When
Yeah.
you say tea, do you mean to dry it first, or can you just drop it in boiling water?
Either way, yeah. So you can use it fresh or dried. And you would just, usually the way I do it is take a glass mason jar, and then put the herbs in, pour hot water over, and let it sit for at least 10 minutes, but often I'll do like an overnight infusion to really draw out all the properties. And then you can heat it up in the morning if you want, or just, let it sit for a few hours. And over here. So this you've probably all seen, the flower smells so good. And you can make tea or tincture the rose petals. I often will make a rose petal glycerate in the summer, and that's using glycerin, which is a sweet tasting liquid instead of alcohol, and it draws out the fragrance and the smell and the flavor of rose petals really well, and doesn't have the strong alcohol flavor, and it's really great for our kids. So Rosa rugosa is really beneficial for the heart, so both the heart muscle and also the emotional heart. So it's often used if people have a big loss, they're grieving. Rose rugosa is often used for that. And then the rose hips, which are these red fruits here. Once they're ripe, they're still a little bit hard right now, but once they're a really deep red orange color, you can pick them and you can eat the skin and kind of the fleshy part around the center, or around the outside. You don't want to eat the seeds inside, but they're one of the highest sources have the highest amounts of vitamin C. So more than any citrus. We usually say like, oh, orange, oranges have the highest vitamin C. Actually not true. Rose hips and also white pine needles have much higher vitamin C than citrus. Yeah, so you can, just eat them as a little snack, or you can dry them and make tea, or make a syrup with them, which is really good as well. So really tasty little snack in the fall or late summer.
Does it taste good if you just eat them?
It tastes really good. Yeah, you want to kind of like eat it around and just the
Like an
skin
apple.
and the
Don't
fleshy
get
area.
rid of the seeds.
And
Yeah.
you
The
leave
seeds,
the seeds because they're little hairs that are inside if you break it open around the seeds, and they can be irritating to the throat and to the digestive system, so you want to avoid that, but just eat around. And it's rare, it's obvious, yeah, once you start going into it.
Allie,
Yeah.
Aunt Polly Waldron used to live in this house, and she would make rose hip jelly.
Oh yeah, you can
For
do that too.
presents for us. We can get a jar every year.
That's so great. I've never made the jam, but I made syrup, which you take them with a little water in a pot and simmer it, and then strain it and add raw honey to it. And you just want to be really careful about straining out all the hair. So for jam as well, you don't want to leave any hair. So I usually do cheesecloth in a metal fine mesh strainer and do that whole thing twice, which you have to be really careful about. This is the only thing. You'll see it. This is elderflower or elder tree. So a small bush version of the tree, but this is the flower of elderflower. And so this is actually pretty late to be still flowering, but usually in the spring, kind of out on Heron Island, everything's a little bit later. But the flower is really great for colds and flu. So it's going to help the upper respiratory system for nasal congestion, for sore throats, it's a febrifuge, meaning that it's going to disperse a fever. So this is more specific for use in teas. It's really great. And then once the flowers go away, the berries start to form like this. And in the fall, these little green berries get really dark purple, really deep purple, almost black looking when they're ripe. And it's a really powerful immune system booster. So you can make a syrup or a tincture from the berries and take it for both prevention for viruses, and also if you get a viral whatever, you can take it and it will speed up the healing process of the virus. and really powerful. Works really well. A lot of people know about this one now. And in traditional herbalists will sometimes use the leaves as well, but they do have a slightly toxic compound in it that you would not want to use in high doses. You could use in drop doses of a tincture for immune support, but you wouldn't want to use a lot of that. So the berries and the flowers.
What plant is that?
And this is it's different from the Spanish moss that's hanging, that's more hair-like. And this is usually more in a cluster. And it has, the way that you tell the difference, this is a little bit dried, and I'll pass this around in a second, but it has like a beginning point. So unlike the Spanish moss that's just draping all over, this has a little part that attaches to the branch, and it has more like thicker little parts. So it's not all like, let's compare. So you can see this is kind of all the same texture throughout, and then this has these thicker branches right here. So we're talking about this plant here, which is not Spanish moss, but this is called Usnea.
How do you spell that, Ellie?
Usnea. And it's more clump-like, so it's not hanging from the branches like Spanish moss is. And I'll show you over here. So it has these kind of thicker parts coming from the center piece. And this is a little bit dried, but when it's fresh, you can take this. So really specific for stimulating the immune system and helping upper respiratory issues, especially lung congestion and head congestion. And so at the beginning of...
Is this it?
Yes, yes, that's it. Great. And so if you pull apart a fresh piece of it, it's a little bit flexible.
Oh.
This is reishi mushroom, and in
Is it
China,
poisonous?
it's not poisonous.
Can
And
you eat it?
so you wouldn't really be able to eat it because if you feel it, it's really hard. But a younger version
Don't break it.
is
Don't wiggle
softer.
it.
So this is reishi, and in China, it's known as the mushroom of immortality. It's known as an adaptogen. And the way that you identify this one, this is an older specimen, but when it's younger, it has this beautiful shiny top. So a bright, like lacquered looking reddish top that's really shiny. And when it gets older, it gets a little bit more dull like it is now. But I was just saying that reishi in China is known as the mushroom of immortality. And that's because it's known as an adaptogen, which is a category of different plants that have specific benefits that help to basically regulate the system, various systems of the body. So this one is an adaptogen to the immune system and also the nervous system. So that means, for an example, the way that it acts on the nervous system is that, so cortisol, which is one of our stress hormones, if cortisol is too high in our body and we take reishi, it's gonna help to gently lower our levels of cortisol. And if our cortisol is too low, it's gonna help to gently raise it. So it has this like,
It knows what to do.
yeah, it has this balancing, like homeostasis finding effect on the body, and also a powerful immune system booster. And it's something that you can take every day if you want to. It's a tonic, so it has this just, over time, this regulating effect on the body. Oh, thank you. And so, as I said, this is an older specimen, so you'll often find it, it's always on dead trees, often hemlocks and dead pines. And when it starts to grow, it has a white colored body with some red, and then over time it has more of a red shine on top. And this one is old, and it has a white bottom, but as it gets older, it gets a little brown.
Are those the little things that pop?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's call them
yeah.
poppers.
Yeah, they're not big enough on this one yet. But jewelweed is often grown, not here, but near poison ivy. And it's a very specific poison ivy remedy. So if you get the rash,
Well, how
you
handy is
can-
that?
I know.
That's nature
jumped in
for
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get the rash, you can make a tea with it and then cool it and dip a washcloth in it and then put it on the rash. Or even just like take a leaf and kind of
Well, that's handy.
put it on there.
Very.
You can drink it internally as well if you have like a really bad rash all over. It's anti-inflammatory, so it's
Mandy.
gonna help.
You
did you
too.
get
Oh
it?
my god. Oh, yeah,
no.
that's right. I forgot about this summer. PTSD.
Yeah, so if you get it really badly, doing it both externally and internally is good. And you can also make an infused oil with it and then into a salve to use for poison ivy.